All right, y'all. We online. Welcome. We at episode 2 of the Identity Podcast with myself as your humble host and my guest, Mr. Clayton Echard. I'm gonna give him a little introduction, man. It's been my homie, my pal, my friend for quite some many years now. I'm not gonna count him because that's gonna age me a little bit, and him. So we gonna skip that part right there. Um, my guest needs no introduction, man, but I'm gonna give him one. He's the king of roses, the smooth-footed Sasquatch, the titicular tight end, the real estate renaissance man, the Bicepticon beast. Mr. Clayton Echard, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, man. I think I might live up to like maybe one of those. The rest of them, they're a little bit of a exaggeration, but we'll take it. I'm good, man. I'm doing great. I'm glad. Second guest. I won't bug you about not being the first, but whatever.
You are the
Second
first guest. I was my own guest as the first.
Oh, okay. Oh,
You the second episode. My bad. Second episode, first guest on here.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, I feel pretty decent, man. I'm solid.
Yeah.
Things have been great.
Good. Okay. Good. How's the Arizona winter been treating you so far? I know it just got started. What's the weather down there like?
That's actually incredible right now. It's like 70. It's been in the 70s, like mid 70s. But my blood is thin right now, man. Like I'm wearing a hoodie because I can't handle the 70s anymore. Like coming from Missouri, I could normally be t-shirt and shorts at 55, and I can't do it now, man. It's like you really get acclimated to the temperature out here. And we also just went through the summer where we had the most days over like 110, like 33 days or something crazy. So yeah, man, I'm adapted, but I think I'm finally like I got the Arizona blood in me, so I can't handle the cold anymore. And I'm about to go back. To Missouri this weekend, so I'm gonna have to face the cold.
You flying out tomorrow for Thanksgiving?
No, Wednesday night, but I'll be there through the weekend. So yeah, I gotta go back and I don't know. I guess enjoy the peace and quiet of Missouri. It's much more quiet than it is out here.
Right, you already know, man. Yeah. Not too much going on, but hey,
yeah,
that's good. That's good times. Yeah, exactly. Look, I wish I was going home, but that ain't happening this year. I got some business to take care of.
Okay.
But good stuff. Got a little show coming out. The show's coming out in 2 days too, so that'll be a.
Oh shoot! Yeah. We can't talk about that now, can we? We probably can't talk about that.
I say it's coming out. Look, there's gonna be a podcast for that show coming out as well, and it's gonna be crazy. Like,
okay.
It's gonna be lit. I'm gonna have everybody in.
Oh
no! It's gonna be popping. Best believe.
All right, man.
We're gonna get into it. But so yeah, in my initial, I'm just gonna give you a heads up if you didn't watch the initial episode. So in the initial episode, I opened up. I'll cut the chase. I opened up about how when I was done playing football, I was mentally trying to figure out who I was outside of just being the athlete and the process it took to kind of discover the other interests, other parts of my life, and how to figure out who I am as a person to fill that void, but also kind of like to show people like who I'm somebody else besides just this, And I know we, growing up, that's all you do. You train, you work out, you dream about, doing it forever. But ultimately, it doesn't really come to your mind when it's stopping until it's like stop, unfortunately, because, in college and growing up, nobody ever kind of like, they might say like prepare afterwards, but it never becomes a reality until it actually hits. So can you tell me just a little bit about your sports upbringing specifically, and how was that solely your identity, like, as a child growing up to be a young adult?
Yeah, I was just having this conversation. In fact, I feel like I have a lot. But that whole journey towards self-love is, I kind of think, like where we're all trying to get, right? We're trying to have that self-mastery, being able to understand who we are and love who we are for who we are. And for me, a lot of my life, I was living my life for others. Because it all started back in 7th grade when I started struggling with my mental health. Back then it was all about relationships and sports. Those were the two things that, made me feel that I had worth, depending on how well each of them went. And I wasn't a good athlete growing up. I really hardly won anything. And so like I didn't have a lot of value in that realm. In my eyes, I was not good enough. And then I was friend zoned by all the girls in high school. So, it's like those two things. I felt like I was trying to measure up to some standard that I wasn't reaching. And my brother, he was starting varsity as a freshman while I was on JV as a junior. So I had that added layer of comparison. And it made it tough for me to feel like I had any actual value as a human. And so, yeah, I took it upon myself, though, to try to then improve upon those weaknesses in my life. And so then it became this competition with my brother, but to try to be better than him. And so I hit the weight room real hard. I tried to just like get out on the field and make more plays. And then I started to, and I started finding success in football. And the more success I came across, I received more external validation. So then I was like,
No, go ahead. I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
Oh, so yeah, so like that, as I kept getting more external validation, I just kept seeking more and more of it, and it very much became my identity. It was, if people were to ask me who am I, it's like I'm Clayton. I play college football for the Missouri Tigers.
So before you jump to college, I'll ask, what do you think other people in high school, what do you think other people, like, they see you, what are they gonna label you as?
Well, shoot, I mean, depends what year of high school.
Yeah, like junior, senior year, like what they gonna, like, you see a Clay, like, oh, that's this guy. Who were you back then?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they would have much to say. I think people would say, oh, that's Clayton. I kind of just existed. I was so fearful of like being myself, so I tried to just blend in. So I remember like I would just try to like not stand out essentially. And I was present at parties, but I wasn't really engaged. I was just there in the room. So because one of my friends was popular, so he would get invited to all the parties and I would just show up with him. But I would just kind of be on the outskirts. So I really feel like I didn't have much of an identity. I just was kind of a chameleon. I blended in, and I don't really know. I think people would have said, oh, he's nice, he plays football, and he gets good grades. Like, I don't think people would have had much else to say because I really hid a lot of my true personality.
Do you do you think you were pretty well respected back then, like by others?
Oh no, I don't think I had any respect. I mean, I don't think I was really kind of conscious of the respect that was going around. But no, I mean, I think more about it. Like a lot of my friends, because again, it was like, what was the measurement of success in high school? It's like, who's popular, who's good at sports, who gets all the girls. Like that's the indicator of respect, or like that's how like other classmates will respect you, depending on how good of an athlete you are, or if you're someone that dates the most attractive women. And I wasn't doing any of those things, so I would say no, I had no respect amongst my peers.
All right. Yeah, no, I definitely feel you on that. And I mean, growing up in Missouri, there's not much. You're gonna play sports, and that's gonna be that's the popular people, the people who do that, the guys at least. The soccer player, the football player, the baseball player, they're gonna get the crowd of people to be around them, and that's pretty much it. I mean, we don't have a lot of things, other things than that, to kind of like people can garner towards and can relate to. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit, jump to college. When, I guess, in college did you kind of start feeling like, I guess, you were known kind of like as the football guy from outsiders? I won't say like by your teammates, because that really doesn't matter, because they know who you are. But I'll say like by outsiders, like you walk into class, or you go into like a party, or you go somewhere like, oh, like that's the football dude. When did you kind of feel like, okay, like this is who I am?
For me, I think I took on that persona probably once I started playing. Like I got my first snaps redshirt freshman year. Like that was the first time I ever played in a game. And I mean, prior to that point, the year prior as a true freshman, I wasn't big enough to like for people to know I played college football. Like they might have looked at me and said he's kind of a bigger dude, but it wasn't obvious. But then like redshirt freshman year, I got bigger. It was like, okay, this guy's 250 pounds. He probably plays football here. I started getting in the game, like more involved. And at that point, I think that's when it was like, okay, this guy, when I walked around with the physical stature, plus getting more involved and like climbing the depth chart, that's when I started to feel I've arrived a little bit. And I think that's when people started to also kind of pick up on like, oh, this guy's plays Mizzou football.
Did you feel like you were kind of above the regular student being like an athlete at a D1 school?
Above as in like, I thought
as in like a person, like I'm
oh, hell
not
no.
saying like I'm a better person than you, but I'm worth more, essentially. Like
hell
that,
no. No. I used to get so annoyed at our teammates, that some of the guys that felt that way. It used to just like really, really aggravate me because, I don't know. I guess for me, I was never the star athlete. I was always kind of like the role player, and so I never let it get to my head. So because of that, I saw guys that did, and it used to just absolutely annoy me. Because my thought was like, you're really good at football, but that doesn't make you a better human being. You're just really good at football, but someone else might be really good at something else that you're not. So, and who's to judge who's better? I mean, that's all subjective, but like better in what way? It really depends on who's, I guess who's the one that's looking at two people and deciding who's better. But I don't like that whole mindset. It's like, we're all different in our own ways. So I was very adamant about like not letting it get to my head, focusing on being the best version of myself, but not allowing myself to think too highly and let my ego get out of control.
Do you have, I know, obviously I can relate to seeing that kind of stuff. Why do you think that, like, what do you think, is there anything that somebody can do to kind of like get themselves checked or help check their friend if they're like acting like they're walking on water, essentially, you think? Or is it kind of just like a lost cause with some people?
No, I think you just need honest friends. I mean, if it's a lost cause if you don't have enough people standing up against it. But I think, it comes with immaturity. You see it a lot where like when someone's acting like they're the man, but they get cocky, but then it's like their friends are cocky. And so because of that, they're the cool kids. And so they're all like feeding off each other, and there's no checks and balances. I think when it comes with maturity, as you age, you realize I can be really good at something, but I don't have to flaunt it because I know I got it. I don't have to prove to people I got it. I just have it. And I think that's a really big sign of emotional maturity. And a lot of times I think you just kind of have to naturally progress through life. And people will start to embody a humble nature to them. But I think like at a young age, high school especially, and then early college, there's a lot of men that are trying to find themselves and trying to find their worth, and they're trying to impress. It's like, who's got the biggest muscles, who's driving the nice car. We realize all this stuff over time doesn't matter. As we get older, it's like, I don't care who drives a nicer car. I could have a really nice car, but I choose not to for whatever reason. It's like, that's just a matter of growth and understanding that material possessions and physical prowess, all that stuff does not equate to somebody being a better human being. That's all shallow.
No, 100%. I mean, I remember being in class sometimes and I see some teammates walk in like 15 minutes late, and then they got a presentation going on, and then they just acting like they just up there, and then they just some people just kind of feel like they're acting privileged to a point to where it's like, I'm on the football team, so I can kind of do what I want. I'm better, blah 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 blah. And it's like, I didn't want to tell all the teachers. Honestly, I think it's a bad thing if they find out you're an athlete, because then they kind of like, they actually don't like you more so than like the regular student, because they all automatically think like, oh, this dude's gonna skate through the class, he's not gonna try, all that. And yeah, some people, I mean, students will give you a pass, but like in the long run, it's kind of crippling, I think. And a lot of people treat, they kind of do the little class checks and treat treat some people kind of like little kids because they got this mentality where it's kind of like, oh, like they have to be baby because they think they're being privileged, essentially, you know, like it's coddling at the worst sense.
Well, I think a lot of these guys, you know, they were the man in their hometown, and I heard stories of guys having people from different cities coming in to watch these guys play football and get autographs afterwards. These are high school kids. And so again, like when you have an immature ego, it's going to start thinking that, oh, I'm better. Like, look, like people are coming from cities away, 30 miles away to come watch me play. You know, and now I got a Division I offer. You know, who else has got a Division I offer? I'm the only one in my school that's going big D1. So of course this just like feeds into it. They show up on campus, and then like, yeah, I mean, the you know, the other students, I mean, they do put the athletes up on a pedestal. So all the girls are wanting to be around the guys that play sports, and these guys are, you know, going out on the field and playing in front of, you know, 100,000 people on national television, and there's this inflated sense of importance, and it's really easy to get lost in it and think that you are something special, and it's not to say you're not special. It's just like you're not a better human being. You're just really good at a sport. And I think that's where over time, or if you're around the right people, they'll let you know that, or they'll say, hey, don't lose yourself in this. You're just really good at football. I mean, that's awesome. But like, don't let that make you think that that you're supposed to be on a higher pedestal than the rest of us humans. Like, we all have our own gifts that you may not have, but we're not out here flaunting it.
Do you think it hurts though? Because I remember always hearing like, you're not a regular student. You're not a regular student. That's kind of crippling for some people, because that makes them think like, oh, I'm not a regular student. Because I mean, you're not, because you got to, like, you know, if you get arrested, it's in the newspaper. You know, they say that a million times. If you get caught in the parking lot doing something on a Friday before the game, so, you know, the news gonna hear about it rather than regular students. So do you think that kind of like helps them saying that? Because I think it kind of like hurts, like coach is always saying, oh, you're not a regular student, when actually, like, a student wise, you are a regular student. But I get like the extra part, it kind of can make people brain dead to a sense, like, oh, I'm not.
You know, I think it's there's a plus and a minus to it. I think, yeah, absolutely. When you start telling somebody, hey, you're going to be held to a higher standard, on one end, they're going to go, oh, wow, that's a lot of pressure. And it could like possibly, you know, cause someone to feel the stress of like, I have to be better than other people. On the flip side, though, too, they may take that and go, I have to basically hold myself to a higher standard because I'm in a position where the average person could not just be average. Like, I have to rise to the occasion. You know, I got my family at home that's expecting me to be great. You know, I got a scholarship, so I'm expected to be great. I'm expected to perform. You know, if not, I'll lose my scholarship, or someone will play over me. Like, there's pluses and minuses to it. I think having that pressure is good. It's just, the problem is that there's the coddling aspect where we had everything prepped for us. All the food was there for us at any time that we wanted it. We would get all the attention that we needed, you know, the media circling around at all times. And it's just the nature of the beast. Like, playing at a high Division I level, it comes with the territory. And, you know, it's like, people know that you play, and so therefore you're going to be judged differently. We're going to get some leeway. We might be able to get, you know, an extension on our assignments because we had a game over the weekend. So we benefited in that realm. But yeah, of course, like, there were some teachers that I experienced where they definitely graded my papers harder because they saw it as, this guy thinks because he's an athlete, he can just sit in the back of the classroom and not talk and not participate. And the reality was like, I was an introvert. Actually, that brings up a thought I had is, I'll never forget it. There was a teacher that I thought it was so unfair the way that she graded me in class. She put the final 30% of our grades in on like the last week of class, and she took me from an A down to like a B-, and it was like, took a big hit on my GPA. And I went in to like talk to her, and I just said, hey, I want to like kind of talk to you about why I got such a low grade. Like, I've done all my assignments on time. I've showed up to every class. And she said, if you want to have this discussion, just know that your grade could lower more. So it was like a threat. And I just remember, I remember thinking, she's like, you didn't ever like say anything, and you sat in the back of the class. And she's like, so that's why you weren't participating. And I was like, hey, I don't speak up because unless someone calls on me, because I'm kind of introverted. Like I don't speak up unless I'm spoken to. But she just completely, I mean, went after me, and yeah, I thought it was very unfair. So I had that experience, sure, but there's.
Do you still think it was unfair looking back on it?
Yeah, I thought it was unfair because she basically dropped my grade from like a 95 to an 81, which messed up my GPA, which in the grand scheme of things really didn't make a difference. But like I thought it was extremely unfair that she wouldn't even let me just like have a conversation with her without threatening to drop my grade more.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
It was a major. She was absolutely, there was a prejudice against me for the fact that I was an athlete.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, teachers like that, aren't like that, exactly like that. And
yeah,
sometimes you got to find out the hard way, I mean, I guess next time you spoke up in class then, huh? In next classes?
I mean, I've been kind of forced to take on an extroverted personality from everything that I've went through. But yeah, I mean, it definitely at that point, I was like, all right, I don't want to, I guess I'll start sitting in the front of the class, and that maybe that way they'll think that I'm more actively participating.
So do you remember the board in the locker room where it had the percentages of people graduating, then the percentages of people going to grad school, then the percentages of people getting drafted by a team, the percentage of people playing the NFL? You remember that board, right?
Yeah.
Do you think the college, I guess I'm putting college coaches in a nutshell, like all in one bunch, but just because I only have like one example to use essentially, but do you think that they kind of give a false sense of security giving, I know they give the percentages up there, but the way that I talked about this in my first podcast where they make everyone do the junior pro day, it's kind of like, I don't want to say you're forced to do it, but it's like you're not going to do it, like you have to do that. And then that's giving you like a mock pro day the year before, and then they're prepping you for all this stuff when in turns, like, a lot of people aren't going to go, and they kind of like make it mandatory when maybe somebody doesn't want to do it because they know they're not going to go to the NFL. Do you think that's like a problem, or do you think that's like just how things need to like kind of stay and be?
I could actually like it because I feel that they almost make it appear as though it's more accessible than what it probably is.
Yeah, I think that's a problem though. I think that's a problem.
See, I'd be curious to hear why you think it's a problem, because I would say I see it as a benefit, because some people that maybe are on the fence with like, I don't know if I can do this, they don't have that self-confidence, they need that additional push from the coaching staff to be like, oh, you can do it, you're gonna do it, like we're all gonna do it together. It kind of just like gives you that sense of confidence if you may lack it yourself, which is what happened to me. Like I lacked the self-confidence. I didn't think I was good enough, but because it was like, oh, everyone's participating, I'm like, well, I'm going to participate too. But if it was something where they're just like, hey, we're only going to allow like 4 people to do it, I think I would have maybe been like, oh, this is my sign that I'm not meant to. So I needed that kind of push to like put me in that environment where it was like, all right, you're about to be in front of all these scouts. Like you better, you're going to have to put your best foot forward. I needed that because I didn't have the confidence myself, but I'm curious why you felt it was like not a good thing.
I think it's good that they present it and they like give it to everyone. It's like, this is what we're doing. And this is just on the schedule. Like they don't, you go into the weight room, like, okay, we doing this day, yada, yada, yada. I think it's great that they have everyone do it per se. And I think that they should have, but I think one thing that they could do is kind of like sit down with like, how they did the one-on-ones with us all the time, Coach Ivy, all that stuff. They did the one-on-ones with us. Just sit down and ask like, hey, like, do you want to do this? And if you don't, that's fine. But, and I'm not talking about the junior pro day. I'm talking about them like giving you a talk. Cause we never really did this talk of like, do you want to like continue trying to play after that? That never was kind of like asked. It was always kind of just presumed because it's like, okay, you're going to do this junior pro day. You're going to do the pro day. and then so be it. I don't think that, because some people, they're kind of done, they don't want to, and then they kind of just like either just they don't have the talk. And I think talking through that kind of thing helps a little more. I think the opportunity, kind of pressuring people to do it, I think that's fine. I think pushing them to do it, like you said, because it can give people, like you said, that confidence and whatnot too. But I think just a nice, like, a one-on-one talk with everyone and seeing kind of where people's heads at, I think that's just a check, because then somebody can maybe save some time that they're trying to do, and they're trying to go to, like, be, I don't know, grad school to be, I don't know, whatever, a doctor, instead of taking the time out to train for something that they know that's not viable.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. To be honest with you, I guess I just planned on giving it a shot, so I never felt like forced into it. And as you say this, I'm like, I never felt the pressure of like, oh, I had to do it. But I guess it's because I probably just wanted to do it.
Yeah, you wanted to, so it's like same, But I know, like, other instances where I've spoken to some people, and it's like, yeah, like, I just kind of just had to, because it's like it would look silly if I didn't, essentially.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is where I think it comes down to, like, you got to be doing what's best for you, and hopefully, you're around the right people where they allow you to be you and not force something upon you that you don't want to do. So I'm all for supporting that. Yeah, hopefully getting people to just, like, not feel pressured into something they don't want to actually partake in.
Do you think that college coaches in general, I guess, or in your case, helped you prepare for the real world and, like, real world problems per se?
I felt like the overall experience with Mizzou made, I thought they did a good job of bringing in speakers, and then we had the Men for Men conference. I really think that they tried to give us the tools to be better men and individuals in general. I mean, could they have done more? I think you could always do more. Sure. Like there's always the ability to try to do more than what you did before. But I really felt like football as a whole taught me a ton of valuable life lessons with how to work together with a team of individuals from all different backgrounds to achieve one singular goal. That translated very well into, like, the workforce. I would say, like, maybe the coaches didn't directly teach me a lot of these lessons, but indirectly by just playing football. I would say that, like, football taught me to work hard and understand that failure is a part of success. And we can lose games, but that doesn't make us losers in life. We can come back and win. It's kind of like our freshman year. We were 5-7. Just because we're 5-7 doesn't mean we're going to be losers the rest of the time that we're there. The next year we end up just rolling the SEC. So it's like that. I think it taught a lot of great lessons in that. And then I think the coaches too, man, it's like they kind of taught the whole tough love. The second I stopped yelling at you, the second I stopped caring. And I think when you can face the heat and the wrath of a college coach, everything else in the real world didn't seem as scary. I kind of felt like all that yelling, I mean, that's just the football environment. But then they're like, I care about you. That's why I'm yelling at you. And I felt that. I mean, I did feel that. And so I felt very prepped. I don't know about you, but I felt very prepped after I stepped out of the college environment.
No, mentally, I was there. Like, I felt like, I could take on the world, dealing with, the mat drills, and then, the 5, 6 a.m. workouts, and then the 2-a-days, all that stuff. Like, mentally, that's probably, one of the toughest things I've ever done in revolving, like, for a long period of time. There's been singular incidents where things have been harder, but it's thinking about all that kind of stuff, and putting somebody on your shoulders and going up a hill, and then just that whole, and then dealing with kind of like, the pressure of, say you mess up a play and you got to watch that play next in the meeting the next day. Like, it sucks, but you got to just be a man, step up to the plate, and kind of just put that down and just own it essentially. And I think, Mizzou did a great job. And the biggest thing I take is what is it? What is the word I'm looking for? Not responsibility. What do you say?
Accountability.
Accountability. Yeah. The accountability and whatnot, and just owning your shit, essentially. I remember Coach Ivy saying that all the time, own your shit. So that definitely.
I think there's a lot of great stuff that came from it. I mean, it's a high pressure environment playing college football, and you're seriously competing against the best of the best. So, like, you can't every day you take off, your opponent doesn't. I mean, I think that was a big motto that I lived through in college. And I was like, I got to show up every day because somebody somewhere else in the country is not taking a day off right now. And that mentality kind of, I still carry with me today. I'm like, I got to be doing something every single day because, it's like, that's just the way that it's been hardwired into me. It's like, give it your very best as long as you have energy. Just keep giving. And eventually the outcome you're looking for will come your way.
So I'm going to separate what you just said and like, the mental preparation for like the real world. And now I'm going to switch it to kind of like the actual workforce in the real world. How do you think, I guess college, I don't want to say not the tutors, the counselors and whatnot, do you think they kind of prepped you well for that aspect? Not like the mental, but more so like the actual, like I'm getting a job. I'm like, I know what kind of I want to do essentially after football though.
I mean, I didn't have a ton of interaction with like, I guess you said counselors, not tutors. I didn't have any tutors, but.
Or I'll even say counselors or the coaches or the wait staff or anybody help you kind of figure out, okay, well, what else do I do like besides football? What else am I besides football? Did you ever have any of that in college?
Truthfully, I don't know. No, I mean, I don't feel like the coaches really prep me for what's after football because I don't really think that was their job though. I mean, I think they were like, we're going to teach you everything we can while we're on the football field. Well, I mean, sure, they asked what I wanted to do, I think at some point after, college ended, but no, I was completely lost after, I remember from my 4th and 5th year, I almost didn't get my scholarship renewed for my 5th year. And so they asked me to come back and play my 5th year without a scholarship because they overcommitted. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I said, I'm either going to have a scholarship or I'm going to just go out into the workforce.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Huh?
I remember us talking about that at lunch one day.
Yeah, so it was a real thing. I started looking and applying for jobs, and I remember I was applying for this IT staffing company, and just because like they were in my inbox, and they were like, we're looking to potentially hire you, and I was just like, this is the job that's in my inbox right now, so I'll do it. I had no interest in IT staffing. But I really didn't have any interest in anything outside of football. All I knew was football. I played football from 12 years old up to, at that point, I was 22 or something, so 10 years. And no, I was completely not ready. Thankfully, I got a scholarship that 5th year. So then, or it was like renewed. So at that point, I was like, okay, you have a year to figure this out because you almost went into the workforce having no idea and just taking whatever job came your way.
Do you think there's a way to kind of like help the athletes, or you could have been helped to help figure out what else you might like? Like, I know college, they don't really want us to go, or Mizzou, they didn't want us to like study abroad or anything like that. I wanted to study abroad so bad, but we couldn't do it. It was kind of frowned upon unless you was in a position where you was not going to lose your starting spot. Like, you the player that, they know wherever it happens, you playing. Like, so do you think that they should allow a little bit more leeway and kind of like maybe exploring different things or bring different people in that's doing kind of like, creative things? I know they brought, the most thing is, I remember they bringing speakers in who was like, somebody was selling insurance and somebody was working at the car dealership in Columbia. Like those kind of things I saw a lot. Do you think that there's any kind of other outlet that could have been presented that would have helped you more?
I just think that there should be an emphasis with athletes as they approach graduation to find their passion and start to work on it while they're still in college as a junior or senior, because this is where a lot of athletes, when they finish the sport, either they finish it on their own terms, i.e. they graduate, or they are finished by injury, or they lose their spot and all of a sudden it's like the career is over with. That's really hard for a lot of guys to adjust to because it's this sudden ending of sports. And it's like, well, I've been doing this for 10 years. Now, what do I do from here? So I think there should be some type of program or some emphasis on there being like just time set aside where like the coaches or whoever, they bring in someone to like talk to the athletes about really focusing in on, hey, what if we pulled football from you right now, what would you do? Because a lot of these guys, that's all they see. They're like, I'm going to the NFL. If I don't go to the NFL, I'm going back to the streets. Like, I've heard many guys make that statement. It was like football or bust. That's all they had. And that's fine to have that mentality. And that drives a lot of guys towards success when it's like, I can't lose. This is all I got. But still, even those guys, it's like, don't you want to have a hobby outside of just football? Like, it's important that you don't put all of your identity into one thing. So I would love to see that. I think that would help out a lot of athletes if they just really started to focus, and if there was like an intentional focus on what is your hobby, and like getting all the guys to basically express that and start to chase after those hobbies so that they have something tangible. So when they lose football, they're like, well, I still have this. This is still a passion of mine that I have.
So what advice would you give someone who's in college, say they're a sophomore, junior, and they're playing a sport, i.e. football, and that's all they know. That's like, oh, this is what I breathe, eat, sleep, do. Like, this is who I am. Ball is life, yada, yada, yada. And they have no other persona or personality outside of that. What would you say to somebody like that?
I just tell them to step back and say, you got to step back, and you have to weigh the alternatives of what might happen. If I were to say that tomorrow, I know without a shadow of doubt you're going to break your leg. Let's just say that I can see the future. You have to be able to sit there and digest, what would I do? A lot of guys go, nah, they feel they're invincible. And it's like, you're not. You're really not invincible. Like, you could easily blow out your knee tomorrow. So I know it's not fun to think about that, but how about we think about it now when it's just, it's not literal. It's just figuratively speaking. It's like, if this were to end tomorrow, what would you do? And that's, I think, what I would tell an athlete is like, you need to step back and really consider this. And if you don't have any interest, you're like, my only interest is football, I would say, well, dig deeper. I used to say that. I was like, oh, all I want to do is play sports. And that was an easy way out. Someone would say, well, what do you want to do after football ends? I don't know. All I know is sports. And then people would kind of let me go with that. They go, okay. And they wouldn't like follow up. I think we need to apply pressure to those individuals and say, there will be a life after football. Even if you have a 15-year career in the NFL, what are you going to do after that? Right? Like, so I think we really need to just like put the pressure on those individuals, because that pressure will be beneficial to them, to really get them to start having to think, wait, what will I do after football?
No, that's good stuff right there. I mean, 100%, because 90% of people on the team don't even think like that. Even seniors, it's like you just looking at the next week ahead. You're not looking like a year ahead. You just looking, the next day. Okay, I got to get up tomorrow morning, because that's unfortunately not talked about enough in my eyes, because I don't really remember too many people talking about like, okay, this is what I'm trying to do after school. Like, unless somebody's going to trying to go to NFL, like, oh, I'm the NFL next year. It's like, that conversations weren't really had. And, I think that it's very deprived per se. I mean, for me particularly, I kind of had an idea like junior year, like, okay, I have something else I want essentially if this doesn't work out. And I luckily stumbled into it. If you want to hear that story, you got to check out the first episode. But, stumbled into it randomly watching Netflix, and it kind of just happened like that. And so I kind of luckily found another passion as well as that. But yeah, no, 100% I agree. Do you think there's anything that you could have done differently to find an excess passion while you were still in school or not?
Yeah, I could have just actually started trying to walk down that path and look and see like what life outside of football would be. But I was a procrastinator. I was a major procrastinator in college. Now I'm the exact opposite. And I'm glad I've transitioned out of that, because it was so stressful when I kept trying to do things last second. I was like, well, I don't have to worry about this right now, so I'll just worry about it when it happens. And then it would happen, and you're like scrambling to try to come up with, the next thing. So I think for me, I don't really know when that transition occurred. It's just all of a sudden one day I just was like, you know what? How about everything that I have to do? How about I do it ahead of time? And then that way I don't have to be stressing. I think I just got tired of always stressing with like scrambling last second, and then I wasn't putting my best work together because I'm like, I can't put together my best work when I'm in a rush. So that would be, yeah, I mean, I think I also though had to be rushed so many times and put out less than optimal output in order for me to finally become agitated enough to change my behavior. I think you only really create change when there's enough pain present. If something's lukewarm, if we just kind of feel indifferent about something, we're not going to change. But it's when we get those extreme feelings of anger or sadness or happiness, that's what elicits change. It's the extreme emotions. So I kind of felt like I had to go through the pain that I went through. I wouldn't necessarily change that because that pain is what forged me. It's what put me in a position where I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of feeling like this. I'm tired of always stressing out. I need to like start protecting my mental health and being proactive. So yeah, I could have done things differently, but I don't think I was supposed to. I think I was supposed to learn through doing them incorrectly.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking on the mental health, how do you think that like so fast forward, graduate ever? I know specifically like, you got picked up after, like, surprisingly, but I'll say after you were done and you thought you were done, how was your mental health affected in regards to you not being viewed as an athlete anymore and like a regular person?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I remember the day that I got cut from the Seahawks. Well, the day before, it was like a week before. I went back. I can't remember the timeline. No, so right when I first got brought in for tryouts and such, I ended up like they gave me a bunch of swag and such, and so I went back home and I went into my high school and I wore all the Seahawks gear because I wanted to walk in and be like, hey, like Clayton made it. Look at him, he's walking through his high school halls wearing Seahawks gear. Like this guy barely even started his senior year of high school. So I walk in and I'm given, I go around and they're like, oh, the coach is like, come speak to the kids in the weight room class, or weightlifting class. So I did. And then like, in the following months, everyone's texting me, oh, like this is so cool. And then I get brought back into camp and everyone's texting me nonstop. They're like, yo, like good luck at the game. We'll be watching on TV. So proud of you, blah, blah, blah. And then I get cut. Boom. The second I got cut, everything went silent. Like no one was texting me anymore. I went from having like 70 different people to like 2 people texting me being like, yo, heard the news. Sorry about that. Still like, bro, you're going to crush it whenever you do. But it just like completely went dark, like quiet as can be. And that was tough because even I knew that there was a life after football. I didn't expect even to make it to the NFL. So it wasn't like I would prep my whole life for it, but that just drastic change, it was hard. I'm like, literally the day prior, I was getting praised by so many people. The next day, it was like, no, you're not in the league anymore. You were, but you're not now. So like, you're just like the rest of us. And the difference between the two and how people treated me was 24 hours difference. It's just wild to see like it changed that drastically. So it was tough. I mean, the adjustment was hard for me. And I thought about trying to go back. I had another phone call 6 months later, but I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I was like, I need to let it go, but I don't really know if I want to. Am I going to be able to find something that gives me the validation that football did? Like, there was a lot of uncertainty, and there just was like a time in my life where I wasn't really comfortable where I was at.
You feel like you lost yourself in the music a little bit, and you was like, sometimes, it was hard to kind of go places, and it was hard to be involved with things, or hard to, going back Thanksgiving and whatnot, and you got to, people still looking at you as like, oh, well, you still gonna try and make it to the league, right? Like, how was dealing with all that?
No, I think honestly, I mean, most people didn't expect me or that were around me for me to even make it to the NFL. So once I was cut, it was like, yeah, that's what we expected. So everyone just kind of moved on. I went from, again, when I was going to family gatherings, I was the talk of the town. Like when I walked in, all my relatives wanted to talk to me about football and, oh, how's Russell Wilson and all this, that, and the other. Second I got cut, it didn't even matter that like I still had all those experiences. They didn't care to ask him. They're like, he's not there
Really?
anymore. So yeah. So even though like I was there a week prior and I could still answer all of their questions, it was like, you're no longer a part of that. So we don't care to ask.
Wow.
So yeah, it was just interesting to see how it's like, you're no longer a part of that. But most of the people that I grew up around, like they didn't expect me to go to the NFL in the first place. So getting cut, everyone just was like, okay, well, that's what we expected. So now what, Clayton? What are you gonna do now? I got a lot of those questions. Like, well, now what? I'm like, damn, it's been a week. Chill. I'm trying to. Let me just process the fact that I got cut still.
Jeez, they like, come on, okay, come on now, chop. You on the Packers next? What's going on?
Yeah,
it's like, there, coach. Can I take a vacation? Shoot.
Right.
It can't be easy.
Yeah, everyone's like, well, we were all expecting this moment, so now what? What are you gonna do? It's like, I don't know. They're like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, you got to have a plan. You should have known this day was coming. I'm like, okay, chill.
Yeah. They tough down in Eureka. Jeez, they don't show no mercy.
Tough love, man.
So that's all through. And so did people kind of like, I guess, did you still feel like you were identified as an athlete, or by other people like identified you? Because you went to Mizzou, so it was like they looked at you like this for so long. And I know you people still coming to you probably saying like, oh, like this is my friend Clayton. He plays football at Mizzou. He played football. So I'm sure you got introduced like that a lot. And so how is like dealing with that when it's done? Like people sometimes do like, oh, this is my friend DeAndre. Like he played at Mizzou. It's like, I don't want y'all to introduce me as that, after a while, because it's like it's tough.
Yeah. I agree with you. I don't really like being introduced either. In fact, I find myself deflecting and saying like, oh, this is Clayton. He played for the Seahawks. I'm like, I had a cup of coffee with him. They're like, why do you have to like devalue it? You were there. And I'm like, no, I'm just saying I was only there for like 2 months. I was like, so I wasn't really like I was there that long. They're like, you still were there. And I find myself constantly like basically downplaying it. And I think the reason why is because to me, I'm not doing it anymore. So if I was still doing it, then like, sure, you can introduce me that way, but I'm not that person. So when they're like, oh, I used to play for Mizzou, it's like, I'm like, yeah, I did, but that's not me. Like I want you to basically say who I am now. Which it's like, those are the things where I get it. People say it because it's interesting. They're like, oh, this is Clayton. I get this all the time. This is Clayton. He was the former Bachelor on TV. He also played for the Seahawks. It's like, there's just 2 back-to-back things and people go, oh, wow. But it doesn't really mean much to me because I'm like, that's who I was. It's not who I am. And it's also, it wasn't even who I was. It's what I did. So I never really liked that. I mean, I also understand that there's a plus to having those titles. People do kind of give you an added bit of respect.
Time and place. Time and place.
Yeah, there's a time and a place. Most times I'm like, I'd rather not be introduced that way. I want someone to introduce me as a mental health advocate or a real estate agent or a wellness coach, whatever it is. Like I would much rather somebody just, if you're going to give me a title, and those things aren't who I am anyways, they're just what I do, but at least do something present. Because otherwise it makes me feel like, oh, this person feels that what's most like interesting about me is something I did in the past, not what I'm currently doing.
Yeah, kind of like sorts kind of devalues who you are a little bit, I think. Like
yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. I don't think people mean to, but I think it does. Yeah. It's like, hey, this is Clayton. He did this, and this. It's like, okay, but what's he doing now? I mean, in a way, it does feel like it's like, hey, all the cool stuff this guy did was back then. So that's what I'm going to tell you about, not what he's doing now, because what he's doing now is boring. Like, I don't think people mean that, but that's kind of how it feels.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, okay, I did football many years ago. Like, people are like, oh, like, do you miss? I'm sure you people still ask, do you miss football? And it's like, I ain't played football in how long? Like, why y'all like? I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. People, it's unique, and people want to talk about something different. And I think people honestly want to like kind of hype you up. That's why they bring it up. So I don't blame these people that bring it up. They're trying to hype you up. They're like, hey, this is my friend. Look, he's done all this crazy stuff. I'm like, he's pretty cool. You know, like I get that's the way they're trying to get it to come across. But to me, it's just like, hey, this is my friend that did all this crazy stuff in the past. I don't know. I don't feel like telling you what he does now. It's kind of, I mean, again, I know it's not meant to be that way, but I'm like, well, yeah, you just make me feel like now what I'm doing is just not as good as what I used to do.
Nah, 100%, man.
It's kind of how it is.
It hits the gut a little bit sometimes. The soul snatches the soul a little sometimes.
I mean, yeah, it's like, I don't think I really put thought into it until just now, but I'm like, yeah, I guess there is some negative aspects to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you hear these things and, you know, it's it's accomplishment. Like every time I go to a wedding, I wear the bowl rings, you know, like I'm going to show you what's up. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I'm proud of everything that's happened in the past and whatnot. And I don't, you know, I put respect on it as much as anybody else. But at the same time, I don't want something in the past to kind of be like a default of who I am, you know, like I'm my own thing first, and then that other stuff comes afterwards. So that's kind of the main, you know, the thing I put behind it is like, yeah, you can say it, but I'm gonna put on what I'm doing, who I am right now, you know, like, and
yeah,
what I'm really about, not what I've been about. So that's kind of what I touched on that. So so with, I guess I'll, you know, fast forward a little bit. I'll revert back to when you said the hobbies. How did you kind of like, what did you kind of like, I guess, what and how did you kind of dive into certain hobbies that you now currently actively have as a lifestyle / career per se? Like, how did you kind of like get into an interest and a passion of what you're doing now? And like, can you give any insight on that?
Yeah. So when it comes to like speaking on mental health, I mean, I got into that just basically by after I was catapulted on reality television and basically came out the other side smelling like, you know what, it wasn't roses. I think that's when it hit me that I realized, man, I'm really struggling with my mental health, and that didn't really do me any justice going on that experience. But I need to like dive deep into who I am, because I don't have any clue who I am at this point. As I just came off the show, I realized that I was living a life for others. And after all these things I did, I still wasn't happy. So I realized, like, what is it going to take? It's like, I need to just start doing the things I want to do and live my authentic life. And that's how I'm going to truly enjoy my life for what it is. So I started to just like listen to mental health podcasts, do my own research, read audiobooks or listen to audiobooks. And it really kind of helped me start to understand that there were a lot of things that I never addressed in my past that I needed to address in order to heal, and then start to basically come into my true self. And then what I found was, like, as I started to understand why I was the way that I was, why I did the things that I did, and why I'd done the things in the past, I started to realize, well, you know, I'm not truly happy because I'm living a life that I have been living in hopes of impressing others. What if I just live a life for me? So I started to just do the things that I wanted to do, and so that's why this new hobby I have of dancing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like, for me, the hobbies that I'm doing today are the ones I always wanted to do, but I didn't do them because of fear of judgment from others. So now I started to just slowly step out of my comfort zone little by little. And, you know, just was like, hey, let me see how this will go if I do try to go do a dance class. Like, so I signed up for one, and I remember I paid for the whole like year pass. Just because I was like, if I pay for the whole year pass, then I better use it. Otherwise, I'm just wasting money. So I basically paid more money in advance just to be like, well, you're locked in. I showed up to like the facility. I remember I was sitting outside my car. I'm like, you got to go in. You're already here. And so I went in, and you know, the first 10 minutes of the dance were I was nervous. You know, there was a lot of experienced dancers in there. But then, you know, eventually, like after 10 minutes or so, I started realizing like that my nerves were calming down, and I was having a ton of fun. And a lot of those experienced dancers were really great. Like, they were super encouraging. And so I walked out of there after that day, and I'm like, damn, that was not as bad as what I thought it was going to be. And actually it was awesome. And like, I had a ton of fun, and there's like an incredible dance community that I didn't realize like I could be a part of. So then all of a sudden I went home, like, see, this is what happens when you step out of your comfort zone. It's only scary at the beginning, but then like once you kind of stick in it for a while, you realize you're not in danger, and it's actually like, okay, I can learn, and now I'm here. So now that I'm here, I might as well make the most of it. So yeah, man, just like where I got here today is really just kind of letting go and stop trying to people please and just being me. And if it's like, if you don't like it, then fine. You know, I get it. My dance moves aren't for everybody. You know, there's people that are like, this is cringy. I'm like, oh, appreciate you, man. But I don't care if you like, honestly, I mean, if you did or you didn't, it wouldn't change anything. You could give me shit and I'd be like, all right, appreciate, like, it is what it is. But I mean, for me, it's like, I do it for me. And people are like, oh, it's cringy. I'm like, cringy for you. It's not cringy to me. Like, I don't care. I'm literally posting it online. What does that tell you? I don't care. You know, because for me, it's just like, it's about me progressing and being able to bring people along and help them see like, oh, look, like he didn't start, you know, killing it right off the bat. He's still not killing it, but he's better than what he was. So like, if he can put himself out there, maybe I can take a chance. That's what it's all about. That's why I'm posting. I don't have to post. I could keep it to myself, but like, I do want to help other people realize that when you step out of your comfort zone, some beautiful things can happen.
Oh, 100%, man. I mean, you preaching right now, and it ain't even Sunday going on. I mean, that's
got to, man. One day away from a Sunday.
Come on now. Come on, God. Nah, if you're 100%. I mean, look, speaking of someone who's in the dance community myself, you know, the first time I took class was a bunch of 5-year-old little girls in tutus. And I'm, you know, this big old dude popping up in here. And I was like, oh, Lord. But it was something I just wanted to try. And then it was kind of turned one thing to another. And I've gotten pretty good, you know. I've done it live on stage professionally plenty of times, you know. And it's fun too at the same time, you know. Like, I didn't realize I did it as a kid, like a young child, but I didn't realize it was gonna be as fun. I thought, you know, I just didn't think about it, but I've always kind of wanted to subconsciously. I noticed a lot of things I do now I wanted to do subconsciously, but you know, the peers and embarrassment and getting in your own head stop you from doing certain things. And I think, you know, plenty of things, like you were talking about the mental health. You had mental health when you thought about it in middle school a little bit, but even that was probably a subconscious thought, is like, and now it's kind of come back to you many years later, and it's like you're actually doing the stuff that you thought about even in the slightest bit way back then. So I think that's pretty dope. And a lot of people wish that they could do that, but they just hold themselves back so much from whether it be other people or themselves holding themselves back or their parents or whoever. Is just like, it's unfortunate because you see it all the time.
All the time. I think some people go a lifetime, and you hear, like, if you ask your elders, what do you wish if you could go back in life you would change? A lot of them say, like, one of the most popular answers, I wish I would have cared less what people thought about me. It's like, boom, there you go right there. That's one of the biggest things that most people will say at the tail end of their life. I wish I'd have just taken more chances and stopped caring what people thought. And I think the two go hand in hand. I mean, if, you know, the reason why people aren't taking chances is because they're fearful of failing and then looking stupid. So it's like, it's all based around like comparison and the opinions of others. Some people don't ever figure that out. And I'm just glad I figured it out at 30 and not, you know, at 70 years old.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's beautiful, man.
Gotta show it to you, man.
I'm crying because the Chiefs lost, not because I'm just like.
They did officially lose.
They lost the game, but it's all right.
That's all right, man. Okay. There's another game next week.
Man, it's another game, man. But hey, man, I really appreciate you coming through. That was some dope stuff to hear. That was lit. I love it, man. I always love talking to you, my brother. You always give good insight on things and things that I know that people need to hear. That's why I wanted you as the first guest on the podcast, because you spit that real talk and you don't sugarcoat nothing. You go straight for it. Man, not too many built like that. That's all. I
appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. This was good. I'm glad we were able to catch up, and obviously we'll have many more of these discussions down the road.
Oh, of course. You're welcome back anytime, man. You welcome back anytime. I might want to bring you on with some youngins to try and teach them what's up.
About time. We need to. Someone needs to check them.
Look now, because they out here acting up and they just trying to get free handouts, and that's not
That's
how
right.
it is. I
No
think it's
freebies
Halloween
here.
every single day of the year, and it's not how I roll.
No freebies here, man.
Well, cool, man. Well, love talking to you as always. Get some rest. I know it's early over there still. It's what the time
Late
is it?
for
Like
me,
8?
man.
Oh, it's 8
I'm
p.m.
normally I'm like 20 minutes past my bedtime, so
Oh,
I'm
well,
gonna
okay. Look, you gonna
I'm
get some
gonna get
extra
some
good
shut
sleep.
eye.
All right,
I'm
well,
gonna
get some
shut eye,
sleep.
bro.
I'll
Yeah.
talk with you again soon. I really appreciate you coming on here again, and definitely looking forward to talking to you next time, my friend.
Yes, sir. All right, man.
All right.
Take it easy.
Good night. Deuces. I will exit Clayton out of here. Thank you guys for coming through. I appreciate y'all watching. If you made it this far, episode 2 of the Identity Podcast, we out here, y'all. It's only gonna get bigger and better from here. Apologize early for the technical difficulties. I don't know what's going on in these streets in New York. I don't know what's going on in this apartment. I don't know what's going on right now, y'all. But somebody come fix this. Why? I think what happened was the computer got overheated or something. I don't know what happened, to be honest with y'all. The Wi-Fi signal was popping off. It was a mess. But y'all, Clayton was a great guest. That's been my homie, my day one since going to Mizzou, man. He's a real one. And if you ain't seen his season of The Bachelor, you should go watch it. Nah, you gotta watch all that. But if you ain't heard of story, man, look at his testimony, man. He's a man who's changed a lot for the better. And definitely somebody I look to as an example. I see him post something, man. I'm looking at it. I'm like, dang, like Clayton's doing that. I need to get on my stuff. And is not one of the best dudes I know, and that's hands down. I mean, I called him, talked to him today about the podcast. He's like, let me get on. We did it to the same day. Like, not too many ones like that. One of one. But anyways, y'all, till next time, deuces. Appreciate y'all coming through. Episode 3.